Okay, so I think we'll get started. So hello everybody. As I said, welcome to CK Group's webinar on how to work with a recruitment agency and why you should consider it. So I am Olivia Woodhead, I am CK Group's marketing executive, and today we are joined by Victoria Walker.
Hi, I'm Victoria, or I also go as Vicky. I'll give you a very brief background about myself, but I may go into a bit more detail later. I manage the scientific and technical recruitment teams here at CK. I have an MChem in chemistry from the University of Sheffield. I decided I wanted to go into sales rather than into the lab, and I've been with CK for over 10 years now.
Brilliant. So we will be running this webinar for you today. We've had lots of questions in from delegates, which is great on this topic. So we've collated a number of them, which will be the basis of this webinar today. There will be time for questions at the end, however, so if you do think of any along the way that we haven't covered, please use the Q&A box, which I think is at the bottom of your screen, and we will try our best to get through these at the end for you. So the agenda for today is as follows. We'll be covering what a recruitment agency is, what they do, and how they can help you during your job search, why you should consider using a recruitment agency, and how to maximize the effectiveness of working with a recruiter. So I will let Vicky begin just by telling you a little bit about CK, just for anybody who might not be familiar with us.
Okay, so CK Group has a number of divisions beneath this, as you can see on the screen here. So a lot of the different divisions are fairly self-explanatory. CK Clinical recruits within the clinical market, CK Science works within the scientific markets, and CK Technical recruits for technical staff, so IT, procurement, supply chain, engineering within the markets that CK Clinical and CK Science work within. So this tends to be chemical manufacturers, pharmaceutical manufacturers, mostly STEM related, but I'll come into that in a little bit more detail later in the webinar. Our QLS division is our Swiss offering, so we're able to recruit for temporary and permanent staff in Switzerland as well. CK was formed back in 1991, and as I say, I'll go into a bit more detail later.
Brilliant. So to kick things off, Vicky, do you want to talk about what a recruitment agency actually is?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a number of different types of recruitment agency out there. In essence, what they do is to help job seekers find a job, basically. So there are some out there that specialise in temporary recruitment only, some that only recruit for permanent staff. You have agencies that do a whole different lot of different types of recruitment, and then you get some that are specialists, whether it may be in legal or finance or ourselves within the scientific markets. So that's an overview. I'll go into more detail about specialist recruitment agencies, and in particular specialists within the STEM industries, which is what we do, a little later in the webinar. We basically speak to job seekers, we speak to employing companies known as our clients, we try to find out what the job seeker is looking for, what the client is looking for, and match them together. On a day-to-day basis, we do a lot of work over the phone and some via video. We used to do quite a bit face-to-face, but over the last few months, unfortunately, that's dropped off quite a lot. And generally, we speak to the job seekers and the employing companies to find out more about them, what they're looking for. We advertise our vacancies. We put them on our own website and on the external job boards. We use LinkedIn. We prepare our candidates for interviews. We handle negotiations. So that's typically what we do on a day-to-day basis. But ultimately, a recruitment agency helps support a candidate to get a job.
Excellent. So as well as sort of normal recruitment agencies, I guess you'd say, there are also specialist recruitment agencies. So what is a specialist agency and what do they do?
Okay, so a specialist agency works within their specialism primarily. So as I touched upon, there are lots of different specialist agencies out there that work within their niche areas of the market. So I'll focus on the specialisms that CK Group works within. Of course, it's close to home. So we tend to work within the scientific and technical fields, anything related to STEM. But another thing that specialist recruitment agencies do, it tends to be offering free of charge advice. So this tends to be the case with any specialist agency really. So that could be tips to help you write your CV, whether you're starting from scratch, whether you've not been looking for a job for a number of years, or whether you just want to make sure that it really does match the position that you're applying to. We help with interviews as well. We provide interview tips, especially with regards to companies that we know quite well. It may be that they wish you to prepare a presentation or something along those lines. We can provide advice in terms of which direction your career direction advice, I should say. Again, whether you're right at the beginning of your career and you don't really know what direction you want to go in, we can offer some suggestions. But also if you want a change in career, we can try to advise you as to how best to go about that. Specialist agencies can also provide suggestions as to other opportunities that you may not have considered before. So in the STEM industries, that might be supporting roles such as health and safety, but in other specialisms, it may be other types of position. So that's the difference really between a specialist recruitment agency and a generalist.
Excellent. So what types of roles and companies do specialist agencies recruit for?
Okay, so again, I'll focus on what we tend to cover here, but within our specialism, which as I've mentioned is the scientific and technical market, and basically anything STEM related in short, so anything relating to science, technical, engineering and maths. So the types of roles that we recruit for would be anything from chemists to engineers. That could be chemical engineers, mechanical fitters, biologists, as mentioned, process technologists, that kind of thing. Clinical staff as well. It's a whole different range of roles that we recruit for within those industry sectors. We work with candidates across a range of markets, so chemical manufacturing, pharmaceutical manufacturing, the energy industry, whether it's renewables, energy from waste, oil and gas. We recruit for a number of companies that perform analytical testing on behalf of other companies, biotechnology companies. It's a wide range really within that field, the type of people that we work with that would fit into those market sectors. I've mentioned support staff. We also recruit for regulatory staff. We recruit for technical staff that would work within the manufacturing unit. So those could be chemical process operators, scale-up chemists, that kind of thing. We recruit for staff to provide technical support and also customer service, again, if technical background is required. So yeah, that's the overview of the types of roles that we recruit for within our specialism. In terms of the types of companies we tend to recruit for, again, it would fit into those market sectors really. So in addition to the types of sector I've mentioned, so chemical manufacturing, pharmaceutical manufacturing, that kind of thing, we also recruit for fast-moving consumer goods companies, medical devices, food sector, startups as well, so companies that may not necessarily have their own manufacturing. We recruit for staff to perform their research on site. So we work with 18 out of the world's top 20 scientific organisations. That's within CK Group. A lot of these are pharmaceutical manufacturers, but we also work with a number of large chemical manufacturers as well. Something that we do as a specialist recruiter is that we work with a lot of SMEs. So this is where we get a lot of our work from, and we're able to build some really good relationships with these kinds of companies, especially because we tend to have a good retention period here at CK, and so we're able to really get that rapport going. Because of where we're placed within the market sector, over the last few months, we've been able to work with a lot of companies that are addressing the COVID response. So vaccine manufacturers and companies that make COVID kits and things like that. So yeah, specialists tend to work within their specialism, but certainly for us, the roles and companies that we work with fit within that scientific and technical market sector.
Yeah, absolutely. So next up, why would you recommend that candidates work with specialist agencies during their job search?
Okay, so there are a number of reasons really, but I'd say one of the top reasons that it would be good to work with a specialist is that their clients, so the prospective employing companies, trust the specialists to do the job because they work in that sector and that's what they do day in, day out. The clients also like working with specialists because they have more of an understanding of what they're recruiting for. So this is partly down to the relationship that has been built up over the years, but also due to the consultants, such as myself, that work within these specialist agencies. So as I mentioned, I have a background in chemistry, so I have that base knowledge of understanding, especially when I'm recruiting for chemical manufacturers, but it's also relevant to the other industry sectors as well. So I'd say that's a good reason to work with a specialist agency. I've mentioned rapport and relationships as well, and that's something that's really at the heart of what we do. We really like to get to know our job seekers and also our employing companies to find out, in terms of the job seekers, not just whether they're suitable for a particular role they might have applied for, but to find out more about what they're looking for in the long term and how flexible they might be, so that we may be able to consider them for other vacancies or maybe suggest to them other things that they may not have thought about before. So a good reason to work with a specialist agency is that you can benefit from the consultant's market knowledge and standing within the agency as well, really. Another good reason to work with a specialist agency is that some companies will only recruit through recruitment agencies. There are companies out there that will recruit directly, and there are some that will only recruit directly, but a lot of the larger companies, especially pharmaceutical companies, will work solely with recruitment agencies. So a specialist agency may be able to open the doors to you to various positions that you may not be able to access directly. So another reason that you may wish to work with a specialist agency is because we can help your application stand out. So when we speak to you at the beginning about what it is that you're looking for, you know, we'll have a general chat, and you know, we may be able to put that information forward when we submit your details, to give a bit of a flavour of, you know, how you come across as a person as well, and particularly for roles that require a lot of communication, this adds value. So that's a good reason to use a specialist. Something else to bear in mind is that one of the reasons that companies use recruitment agencies is to reduce the point of contact that they have. So as you can imagine, an HR manager, for example, or a technical manager, they have lots of other responsibilities that they have to fit into their day, not just recruitment. So if they are recruiting directly and they have lots of applications coming in from lots of individuals, and then each of those individuals are trying to contact them to find out what's happening with the status of their application, that can get quite draining for the individual managing the recruitment process. So a specialist agency is able to help with chasing that feedback for you. Now, we're not always able to get through, and it may not be instantaneous, but we do the legwork so that you don't have to, really. We're able to chase and put in a good word and all that kind of thing on your behalf. So that's a number of reasons, really, why I recommend working with a specialist.
Brilliant. And I guess following on from that quite nicely, actually, how would candidates be able to get the best out of working with a specialist agency? What would you recommend?
Okay, so there are a number of things here. So first and foremost, I'd say that honesty is the best policy. You know, when you're chatting to us about your job search, I would be as honest as you possibly can be about, you know, what you're looking for, your current circumstances, or what you would consider, all those kind of things, because the more information we have, the better we will be able to provide a service to you. So if, for example, you're looking for a new position and ideally you would like X salary, but actually you can consider as low as Y salary, it would be good for us to know that. Not that we'll necessarily pass that information on to the prospective employer, but so that we have that information so we can consider you for other vacancies as well. So it just means that we're able to suggest other roles that you may not have come across, and hopefully open other opportunities for you. So it's also very important in terms of your current circumstances. If you're interviewing elsewhere, it's handy for us to know that information, whether you have interviewed already and you're waiting to hear back about it, so you have something that you're waiting to hear back about, or that you have something coming up, meaning that you would be unavailable on a particular day. Again, it's good for us to know that information, just so that we can use it, where necessary. If you do have an application in with a company that is maybe taking their time a little bit, we may be able to leverage the information that you've provided us to try to, move them along a bit, give them a gentle nudge to provide a bit more information on your application to that company as well. Again, doesn't always work, but it's useful for us to know that, and also to know which other types of role you're considering, really, again, in case we have other vacancies that we can also discuss with you. Do keep us informed of any change to your circumstances. So if you book any holidays, meaning that you'll be unavailable for a particular amount of time, if any other interviews do crop up that means that you'll be unavailable on a particular day, if something happens that means a change to your availability in terms of notice period, or anything that we speak about initially, if there's any change to your circumstances, do please let us know, and then that means that you're able to get the best out of us because we're able to do the best for you. Something else to bear in mind is flexibility. So the more flexible you're able to be, the better you will get out of your specialist recruitment agency. Now, we appreciate that not everyone is able to be flexible, and that's absolutely fine. But as long as we are aware of that, then that's good to know. That if you're flexible in terms of location, or in terms of salary, or in terms of the type of role that you're looking for, it just means we can consider you for more vacancies as and when they become available, really. Similarly to that, in terms of communication, as I mentioned, we do a lot of our work over the phone, so we'll always try to call in the first instance. And some of our vacancies, there's a very quick turnaround in terms of speaking to people, submitting their details to a role, getting the interview sorted, and then the position actually being offered and accepted. So the more responsive you're able to be will mean that you'll get more out of us. So if you are not available at any particular time, so if you're working, for example, and you can't answer your phone at work, please let us know in the initial conversation what the best time would be for us to contact you. And if you do, as I say, we'll always try to call in the first instance, so if you do notice a missed call or a voicemail, do please try to call us back when you can, whether it's at lunchtime or in a break or something like that, just so we can do the very best for you, really. How else can you get the best out of working with us? Reliability is a key thing. So as I mentioned, when we discuss with you about a vacancy, we'll also want to find out a bit more about what you're looking for, how you might fit with that company. So if we submit your details forward to a role with your permission, then we're invested. We think you have a reasonable shot at getting an interview for that job, being offered that job, and therefore we would expect that kind of commitment in return. So if you do then receive an interview request, we would expect that to be attended, because you're then able to find out more about the position itself and find out whether it would be something that would suit you or not. So reliability is a key thing, really, to get the best out of working with a recruitment agency. I would say if you are unsure about a position, maybe take a little bit of time to think about it, because we don't like to waste people's time. We don't like to waste your time as job seekers, we don't like to waste our own time, and we don't like to waste the time of our clients either. So if, let's say, for example, you might have to relocate for a position. If you're not sure if you'd want to relocate, or you're not sure about the area that the job is in, or perhaps if you're not sure about the property prices, let's say, in that area, maybe take a little time just to look into that, so that we have more of an idea as to whether it will be a viable opportunity for you, just so that we don't go all in at the beginning and then we get the prospective employer's hopes up, and then actually you pull out of the process because something hasn't worked out. It's better to look into those things at the beginning. We want to make sure that the process is as smooth for everyone involved as possible. For everyone involved. So that's something to bear in mind. I would say don't be afraid to ask our advice. That's a good way to get the best out of us. We offer this for free. We have a number of resources on our website, such as advice for CV writing, tips for interviewing. We have a number of advice videos as well, but you're also welcome to call or email to ask us for advice over the phone. And then understanding, really, we're all busy. If you're looking for a new position, whether you're working at the moment or job seeking full time, there's a lot of things that you have to do in the day. There's a lot of things that we have to do in the day. There's a lot of applications that we go through, lots of tasks that we have to complete. So I would say, if you're able to be patient, that would be brilliant. That's a good way to get the best out of us, because we want that feedback as much as you do. If we've submitted your details to a role or you've interviewed, we want to hear what the result is from the employing client as much as you do. So we'll try to chase that down for you as soon as possible. And sometimes it can be a little slow, but we're always trying to get that for you. So I'd say those are probably the main ways of getting the best out of us, really.
Great. So obviously, the job market is extremely competitive right now, especially in the world of COVID. So it's really important that people, know how to make themselves stand out. So what would be the best way to do that, in your opinion?
Okay, so the first thing that springs to mind is to apply with a full CV. That includes your name, contact details, full employment history, and full educational details. So it might sound a little bit silly, but you'd be surprised how many CVs we receive that either don't have a name, don't have contact details, or both. So there's no way for us to get in touch with that person. So first and foremost, please include contact details. Full work history, I would say, is important. Now, CVs are really subjective, and what you might hear from me might be different to what you might hear from another recruiter. But the reason that I like to see a full work history is, first of all, so that there aren't any gaps. And if there are gaps in your employment, then please, put a little explanation, because that always makes people wonder. But also because we, chat a lot with our prospective employers as to what they're looking for in a person. However, it's unlikely that they can list every little thing, otherwise the job description would go on for pages and pages. So it may be that actually they might be looking for someone with really good communication skills, because the person would have to spend a lot of time on the phone to suppliers, even though their role might be primarily lab based. Now, if they haven't mentioned that to us, but you've held a position in retail or customer service, it may not be directly relevant to the role to which you're applying. However, it would be useful to put on there, because then that employer can see that you have those transferable skills. So I personally like to see a full work history, and of course relevant educational qualifications as well. So that's a really good way to stand out. I would say, if possible, to tailor your CV to each vacancy. Now, we can advise on that, and because we do build these relationships with our clients, we tend to know what type of person they like, whether that's personality wise or whether it's what they like to see on a CV. So if we offer advice in terms of needing to provide more information about a particular technique that you've used, please take that advice, because we're trying to do our very best to get you the opportunity to interview with that client. So that's something I'd say would really make us stand out. If you're able to tailor your CV when you first apply, even better, but certainly listening to and taking our advice when offered would be a good thing. I would have a think about the type of roles that you're looking for and the career direction you want to head in. As I mentioned, if you're unsure, feel free to get in touch and we can offer some advice to that effect. But I would bear this in mind when you're applying to vacancies. And rather than, you know, a scattergun approach of applying to everything going, I would suggest only really applying to the roles that you are really very interested in and that you reasonably match the criteria for. So this is really important so that you're able to stand out a little better, and so that we see your details that are relevant to the vacancy to which you apply. And also, as I say, really, if you're unsure, feel free to get in touch. But I'd say if you've applied to something that you think you're a really good match for, maybe follow it up with a phone call. That would help you stand out, because we do receive a lot of applications and we try to get through them all. But if you follow up with a phone call to the ones that you think you're an excellent match for, then that will help. Something else I'd say is to keep us informed of any change in circumstances. I mentioned this in response to the previous question as well, but it's so important for us to know if there is any change in your circumstances that could potentially affect the applications that we're making on your behalf. So that's a really good way to stand out, is just keeping us up to date, really. Keeping track of your applications, that's a good way to stand out. So the more information you're able to provide if you do call in about a particular application, the easier it is for us, which is brilliant. So if you're able to provide the reference number, and our reference numbers are 5 digits long and at the moment start with a 4, the consultant's name of the vacancy, if that's been provided, the job title of the vacancy and the location. All of this will really help the consultant track down your application. But also, if you're not able to get through to the consultant handling the role, it will help one of their colleagues either take a message or try to find the information on their behalf. So keeping track of applications would be a great way to stand out. I think the other thing to say really is understanding, you know, as I mentioned, we're all busy, and we'd love to get back to every person about each application, but in reality, unfortunately, it's just not possible. We would be responding to people about their applications all day rather than actually searching on the vacancies that, you know, we need to do. So at the bottom of our adverts, we do say that if you haven't heard from us within 5 days, then unfortunately you've been unsuccessful in that particular application, which again, I suppose is why I'd recommend calling if you think you're a really good match, just to bring that to our attention. Yeah, so I'd say those are the main things really as to how you'd be best standing out.
Lovely. So that covers everything here. We will now take any questions that you guys might have at home. We have had one question come through about what are the requirements of candidates who might not be from the UK but are looking for a role here?
Okay, so a lot of our employing companies will require people to be eligible to work in the UK. So if you are an EU member, then you would need to apply for settled status or pre-settled status. Now, I can't provide official advice because I don't work for the Home Office, so I would thoroughly recommend that people look at the government website for this information. But my understanding is that you need to be living in the UK before the 31st of December this year. I could be wrong on that, so please do check out the government website. But generally, eligibility to work in the UK is a requirement. There are a number of companies that we work with that are able to sponsor job seekers, so to provide sponsorship. However, that being said, even though they may be able to do it and they may be on the list, they may not wish to provide sponsorship for the particular vacancy that they're recruiting for through us. So just because a company is able to does not necessarily mean that they will. So that's something to bear in mind. Unfortunately, there aren't a huge amount of vacancies that we recruit for whereby the company will offer sponsorship. So in the vast majority of circumstances, we do require people that are eligible to work in the UK.
Brilliant. We just had another question through about applications. How do we process applications sent through from other websites such as Indeed? Do we recommend that they apply on our own website, or do they have as much of a chance in applying from elsewhere to our roles?
Absolutely, completely equal chance. So whether you apply on our website, whether you apply via Indeed, CV Library, whether at LinkedIn, wherever our vacancies are advertised, that application will either go into the consultant's inbox that is handling that role, or a team inbox if it's a team that is recruiting for that position or those positions. So it really doesn't matter where your application comes from. The only thing I've been mindful of is that sometimes some job boards tend to alter the CV to make it a bit more streamlined, but in doing that it removes some information. So I would try to apply with your own CV wherever possible, just so that we have as much information as possible, and that we don't then for necessarily always require an update from you unless you're tailoring it to a particular role. But no, I mean, it doesn't matter which route you apply through. The only thing I'd mention on this is maybe to keep track of your applications and what you're applying to, so that you don't necessarily apply to the same vacancy through every different route and we end up with 5 applications from you for the same role. Now I appreciate that the different job boards may have different reference numbers. As I say, ours is 5 digits long. At the moment it starts with a 4, and it will usually be towards the bottom of our advert. But no, it shouldn't matter which route you apply through.
Brilliant. We just had one more question which kind of follows on from the previous question about right to work within the UK. Do we recruit people that are based outside the UK to come and work in the UK?
Yeah, absolutely. As long as they are eligible to work in the UK, certainly. Yeah, I've recruited a number of people throughout my time here that have relocated mainly from Europe, and yeah, that's not a problem at all, as long as they meet the criteria of the role, they're eligible to work in the UK. There may be other things to consider in terms of when a company wants someone to start by. If it's a really quick turnaround time, then it may not be feasible for you to relocate within that time and start by the time the company needs you to start. So there are other things to consider, but yes, we certainly can recruit people from outside of the UK to work within the UK, as long as they are eligible to do so.
Does this apply to remote work as well? Can we recruit for roles within the UK? Can somebody be based in another country and work remotely from there, or do they have to be based in the UK?
I think that would depend on the employing company and what they were looking for in a remote worker. I've got to say, I don't know off the top of my head what kind of tax implications that might have, so I can't answer thoroughly, I'm ever so sorry to say. But some remote working roles that we recruit for where the employing company is based in the UK, they will sometimes want their remote workers to meet up again, probably not within the last few months or so, but they may have meetings once a quarter or twice a year or something like that, whereby they get the whole team together. So that may be something to consider if someone is working remotely and is actually based outside of the UK. There may be travel implications to consider. Other than time zone differences, I can't see why that would be a problem unless the employing company specifies that they must be based in the UK for one reason or another.
Brilliant. We just had a question. Do we offer work experience for university students, or do they need to be a graduate to attain a role with us?
Okay, so we recruit on a temporary basis as well as permanent. We cover contract, interim, we have our payroll team, so we can take on agency workers. So in terms of work experience, I'm assuming this person may mean a placement year. And if that's the case, then yes, we can offer placement years. We would tend to offer that as a temporary position. So if a company comes to us and says that they're looking for a temporary worker in the lab for 12 months or so, and it fits in with the times that you'd be looking for your placement year within the university, then absolutely that would work out. If this person means before before embarking on a degree, so not being a graduate, again, temporary positions we can certainly offer. We tend not to offer work experience placements whereby you would do a couple of weeks work when you're about 16, I think it is. It's such a long time ago for me, I can't remember. Just because we are a for-profit company, so we have to make sure that we're able to pay our staff and our bills and things. So we don't supply voluntary positions, unfortunately.
Brilliant. So I think that is all of the questions that we've had through. So that is everything from us. Please feel free to get in touch with us if you want to find out any more information about working with us, about any of our roles, or if you just want to chat and just to get signed up with CK. There are some contact details on the screen there if you want to take a note of any of those. Thank you so much for attending. We really hope you found this useful, and hopefully we'll see you on the next one. So that's goodbye from me.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.